Next, we got to talk about the critical need for autonomy. You, the neurotypical wife, have probably realized that your husband is a solo player who just happens to be married. For most autistic people, having a sense of control over their actions and environment isn't just a preference, it's a core need for feeling regulated and safe and sane. To the autistic brain, the world feels like a chaotic, unpredictable mess. So creating internal structure is not only a key to survival, it's a key to sanity. So when his neurotypical wife constantly jumps in with her suggestions, it can feel like a direct attack on his autonomy. He might have a very specific, logical way of doing something, logical according to him. Her idea to do it better isn't just an alternative. It's a disruption of a system he built to manage the world. It implies his way is wrong. It steamrolls his sense of agency. The feeling of being controlled isn't him being dramatic. It's the genuine neurological experience of having his own self-regulation system hijacked. And this can lead to what's known as demand avoidance, where even simple tasks become incredibly stressful because they feel like a demand that's stealing his control. So let's cross the bridge into the husband's world. To get why her helpful reminders can feel like a hailstorm of criticism, we have to look at the neurology underneath it all. And this isn't about him being too sensitive or difficult or whatever. It's about his brain's operating system. So let's call the wife's reminders and suggestions pings, P-I-N-G-S. To her, each ping is a small single piece of information. Take out the trash. Did you make that call? You should wear the blue shirt. Her heart's in the right place. I mean, I'm not faulting her. But to an autistic brain, these are not small, isolated pings. They're piling up. There's this cumulative effect going on. They're interruptions to him. And each one carries a hidden and, quite honestly, a very devastating cost. Okay, so if your spouse does or says something that you download as being disrespectful, it hurts. We'll call it hurtful. But when you replay the event, now you're hurting you. Okay, so when you replay the original thing that happened once, but you've replayed it 15 times, it feels like it's happened 15 times, and then you blame your spouse for doing it to you for 15 times when it was only once. So yeah, we'll call the original event hurtful. Shouldn't have happened, it was wrong. But your replays, it's not the other person doing it to you then, now you're doing it to yourself. Hey, quick message to all the ladies here suffering from Cassandra syndrome. It is September 24th. And I have a Cassandra syndrome recovery group starting next week, October 1st. We will be meeting 4 weeks, 1 hour a week at 3 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. You can email me and I'll send you the link, or you can just simply go to CassandraSyndromeRecovery.com. It's important that you join this group because you're going to be shoulder to shoulder with what I call your recovery sisters. I create a private Facebook group, and the only members of that Facebook group will be the members in the Zoom group. Okay, this is a 4-week-long thing, and it's going to be instructional. It's going to help you recover from the emotional deprivation, all the damage that has been done. And sometimes there's nothing more therapeutic than being in a group of other ladies who are going through the same damn thing that you're going through. And by the way, most of these groups continue to meet after our 4 sessions are done. They continue to do face-to-face Zoom calls. They continue to converse with one another daily on the Facebook page. Don't miss out. Please don't miss out. Email me, I'll send you the link, or just simply go to CassandraSyndromeRecovery.com. And I'll see you on October 1st, okay? He feels unsafe and insecure in the relationship. This causes anxiety. He tries to reduce his anxiety. His anxiety reduction techniques cause relationship problems. And the relationship problems raise his anxiety, and then he feels even more unsafe. So the whole point of this little conversation here is, at any point along the trajectory there could be some type of intervention. Anxiety is the first thing that happens. So he can find anxiety reduction methods, some of which will not work for everybody. You know, something that may work for this guy won't work for this guy, but there are a ton of anxiety reduction strategies. So if you tackle that first thing, the anxiety, and he finds some anxiety reduction strategies, now he's not engaged in some of the more dysfunctional anxiety reduction attempts that cause relationship problems. So now you've intervened at the very front and tackled the second and third step in this. Have you ever heard of Cassandra syndrome? Well, here's some of the traits of that. And if you resonate with this, then maybe you have Cassandra syndrome. First thing is you often find yourself feeling lonely even when you're in a crowded room or surrounded by friends. You might notice that you're seeking frequent reassurance or validation from others, indicating that you're craving emotional connection and support. You may be spending an excessive amount of time on social media or watching TV and so on to feel connected, even though it often leaves you feeling more empty and unfulfilled. And you may find yourself reacting strongly to emotional moments in movies, music, and conversations and so on, because these experiences resonate with your unfulfilled need for connection. So if that resonates with any of you, you may want to investigate this thing called Cassandra syndrome. And there's a link right here that says feeling stressed. That is a 10-minute meditation for those of you who may be experiencing this. And it's going to be about recovering from Cassandra syndrome. So give this 10-minute video a listen and see if it can help. Thank you. So some of you new to my channel here may not even really know what Cassandra syndrome is. So we'll look at some of the symptoms of that and see if this sounds like you. I often feel dismissed or overlooked by my spouse when I share my feelings. My spouse doesn't show much interest in my daily life or experiences. I feel like I have to hide my emotions to avoid conflict. My spouse rarely initiates conversations about our relationship or doesn't talk about feelings much. I often feel alone even when we're together. My spouse is not responsive when I need emotional support. I feel that my spouse doesn't understand or validate my feelings. I often question whether my spouse cares about my feelings. I feel like my needs are not a priority in our relationship. My spouse often minimizes my concerns or feelings. I frequently feel like I'm walking on eggshells around my spouse. I struggle to communicate openly about my emotional needs. My spouse often seems distracted or uninterested when I talk to him. I feel more like a roommate than a romantic partner, and I feel that my emotional needs are unmet most of the time. So, if that sounds like you, then I think it's safe to say that you are suffering from Cassandra syndrome. So that's what this channel is about. This channel is going to be about support, education, and healing. And we're going to take a deep dive throughout the videos that I'm going to be posting almost daily. Take a deep dive on what you can do to recover from Cassandra syndrome, to start taking care of you, to stop being perhaps so codependent, and stop doing so much work and effort and fixing on your spouse. Spend that time and energy working on you. That's going to be the goal. And if you are an empath and codependent, when you start spending a lot of time and energy that you wasted on your ASD spouse, you start spending that time and energy on you, you're probably going to feel guilty. And you may even blame yourself that at some level, like, well, I'm not as pretty as I used to be, or smart, or as witty, or as sexy, and I'm not as nice as I used to be. I've turned into somebody that I don't even know, and I've given up a part of myself and sacrificed myself for this relationship. So we're going to work on undoing all of that, okay? So feel free to subscribe. I post every day. I'll see you again tomorrow. God bless. In this video, I want to validate those of you out there who are the neurotypical spouse suffering from Cassandra syndrome. When you're in a relationship with somebody on the autism spectrum, you can expect emotional blind spots. That would be difficulty recognizing when you, as the NT spouse, are sad, anxious, or lonely. There's going to be flat communication. In other words, conversations may lack depth, nuance, or emotional resonance. There's going to be literal thinking. That's going to be struggles with metaphor, implication, subtle social cues, and so on. There's going to be perspective taking difficulties. That's going to be a limited ability to step into your shoes. And of course, there's going to be shutdowns or meltdowns, which would be emotional overwhelm that leads to withdrawal or explosions. Now, none of these are intentional, okay? It's not purposeful cruelty. They are the natural outcomes of a brain wired differently. But that doesn't really make much difference, because for the neurotypical spouse, the effect is a steady diet of disappointment. And I'm not making your ASD spouse out to be a bad person. I'm sure they're a very good person. So we're in agreement with that. But unfortunately, when you're not getting your needs met, we have the Cassandra syndrome phenomenon. Quick message to neurotypical Ys out there that may be suffering from Cassandra syndrome. I want to talk about the cycle of silence. You know, the Cassandra dynamic often follows a predictable cycle, and you've probably lived it. First of all, there's hope. You know, you believe that this time your ASD partner will understand. Then there's disappointment. The conversation misses the mark again, and you feel more alone. Then there's conflict. You lash out in frustration, and why wouldn't you? Or you withdraw into sadness. Then there's self-doubt. In other words, you wonder if you are too needy or unreasonable. And then there's the silence. You stop asking for what you need to avoid more pain. And so the cycle continues, deepening the emotional starvation. Now, having said that, this book is on Amazon. Do a search for Mark Hutten Amazon Books. Please like and subscribe. It is often the case that when a neurodiverse couple gets married, one has autism, one does not, that one or both parties brought some previous emotional scars into the marriage. There was some emotional disruption prior to the marriage. You bring it into the relationship, and now you're blaming one another for those emotional scars when the other person's not to blame. It's something that happened in childhood, perhaps. You'll have to do individual work in that case. If you're not okay inside with you, there's no way you're going to be able to work on the relationship problems. You got to fix you first, and then work on the marriage problems second. So don't put the cart before the horse. Also, don't expect your spouse to be able to fix you. If this is something that's going on inside of you that was there before you even bumped into one another, you can't expect your spouse to fix that. Your spouse cannot heal your old emotional wounds. Especially the neurotypical spouses. It would be really awesome if you could have a little bit of grace and mercy and compassion for your autistic spouse, because he has a developmental disorder. That's the key term right there, developmental. That means his emotional brain did not fully develop. So when he was a child, he was always lagging. His peers were always ahead of him in the social and emotional sense. They had social skills that he didn't. They had emotional intelligence that he didn't. And worse than that, he hit a ceiling at some point. So his emotional development was always behind, and then at some point it hit a ceiling. So you could have an autistic spouse, for example, and let's say he's 45 years old chronologically. Emotionally, he's more like a 14-year-old. So if you're going to connect with people in a social sense, you have to have emotional intelligence. So if you would say that your autistic spouse lacks social skills, it's because he lacks the development, a normal development of his emotional brain. Quick message to the neurotypical Ys out there suffering from Cassandra syndrome. Let's talk briefly about the pause pact. Before you can communicate, you have to stop the war. The pause pact is your first act of peace. It's not about walking away, it's about preserving safety. So the moment either you or your ASD husband feels overwhelmed, either one of you can say, hey, time out for calm. No questions, no arguments, no guilt. You both agree to step away for at least 20 minutes. Now, this single rule can save hours of hurt. It gives the autistic partner space to regulate, and it gives you, the neurotypical wife, permission to pause without fear of abandonment. So, when stress rises, the autistic nervous system can hit overload faster due to sensory and emotional flooding. Silence or retreat isn't rejection, it's regulation. You, as the neurotypical wife, may interpret withdrawal as lack of care, which triggers pursuit and escalation. So the pause pact interrupts that loop. I would be interested in your comments regarding whether you've tried the pause pact or not and how it went. And I will read and respond to your comments. Thank you. You know, the truth is that your core essence is one of love. Your organic state, your natural state is one of love. You are a loving, kind, caring, compassionate person who wants to give. But some of you feel like you've lost that. It's like, I've lost a piece of me. I'm not the person I used to be. This autistic spouse of mine brings out the worst behavior in me. I'm starting to doubt myself. I'm starting to doubt my sanity. I'm starting to believe that I'm mean-spirited. I'm noticing that I don't have much forgiveness in my heart anymore. I notice that I'm bitter and resentful. This is not the person I was. This is not the person I want to be. It's not the person that you are. That's not you. Your behavior may be dysfunctional, and you may be sane in doing things that are unloving, but that doesn't affect your core self. Your true self is one of love. That has never changed. You've always been love. You are love. You will always be love. That can never be changed. Your true essence cannot be threatened by anybody else or your own behavior. So, you have an assignment today. And that is, after you click off this video, I want you to remind yourself, you know, my true essence is one of love. In spite of my ego getting in the way and causing me to behave in unloving ways, that doesn't change my core essence. And then 5 hours later, I want you to say the same thing. My true essence is one of love. My behavior, my poor choice of words does not reflect my true essence. And then 5 hours later after that, I want you to remind yourself again, my true essence is one of love. So that's your assignment. 3 times today, I want you to remind yourself that you have not lost yourself. You've lived a bad dream for too many years, and you thought that you lost yourself, but you haven't. The self can't be lost. Your true essence can't be lost, can't be changed, can't be threatened. Nobody has the power to get you outside of your true essence. You don't even have the power to get you outside of your true essence. That's it. Your love, your true essence is love. It's always been that way. It's that way today. It'll be that way tomorrow and next week and 50 years from now. Hello, dear ladies who may have Cassandra syndrome. I created this channel for you because I care about people going through that, and it's not just a female thing, but 95% of the time it seems to be the neurotypical wife dealing with the ASD husband. But at any rate, the point of this video is if you want to do a private paid coaching session via Zoom, feel free to email me and we'll set something up. I would love to have your husband involved too. And by the way, I have 2 groups for ASD husbands. You can email me and I'll send you the links. I would love to get him in one of my groups, and then I can work on him on your behalf. So email me if you want to talk to me on Zoom. Also email me if there's a snowball's chance in hell that you could get your ASD husband in one of my groups. Also, in this video here, if you have a question about what to do with Cassandra syndrome or how to deal with your ASD husband, please just keep it to one question. I promise you I will answer that question. Give me 24 hours or so. I post every day, sometimes 2 a day, so please subscribe. And I'll look forward to your questions, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Hey, quick message to sufferers of Cassandra syndrome out there. You've tried to deliver your message to your ASD husband 100 different ways, and still it doesn't land. So if conversations aren't working, use a different tool. We're going to talk about keeping it short and on one topic. So here's some ideas. First of all, don't talk while flooded, hungry, or multitasking. And also, schedule the talk. Could we do 10 minutes after dishes? One topic. So predictability lowers his anxiety. And if you put it on a shared calendar and his brain knows when we are going to have a short talk on one topic, it relaxes him enough to be able to hear you. So this note is going to only have 3 lines. It could be on a post-it note, index card, or a text. It's only going to have 3 lines. There's going to be a topic line, an I feel line, and a request line. Here it is. Topic. Weekend plans. I feel statement. Anxious when plans change last minute. Request. Decide by Friday 6 p.m. You're speaking in bullet points rather than full sentences. So keep that note concrete, short, and visual. That beats long emotional monologues big league. It's not dumbing down, it's building a bridge so that his brain can cross over to your brain. One behavior, one time frame, one metric. By the way, subscribe because I'll be doing videos several times a week. I don't want you to miss anything. Hey friends, Mark Hutten here. If you're a non-autistic wife feeling lonely in your marriage, this one's for you because I want to talk about 3 things every NT wife needs to know in a neurodiverse marriage. Point number 1, you're not doing anything wrong. Your emotional needs are real. It isn't your fault that your ASD partner doesn't give you the connection the way you imagine. Brains can be wired differently, and connection doesn't always look the same on both sides. So understanding this isn't resignation, it's clarity. Point number 2, safety comes first. People open up when they feel safe, not pressured. Lower tension, lower expectations for perfection, and invite connection gently. Try to create moments where you both can actually feel seen, even in small ways. Point number 3, you deserve balance too. It's okay to step back from the therapist on standby role in your home. You deserve equal emotional investment. So take care of your needs and reclaim your role as a partner instead of being a therapist for him all the time. Okay? You're not a parent. You're not a therapist. You're not an emotions manager. You're not the meltdown control police. So you need to let your ASD partner meet you as an equal, not as a caretaker. Now, if this resonates, pause with compassion, not guilt. You can love someone deeply and still ask for emotional support, and you deserve both connection and peace. Now, share this with another wife who needs to hear it today. You're not alone. Subscribe, and I'll look forward to seeing you in the next video. You're saying that he seems emotionally distant. Ask him for his definition of that. Hey, what's your definition of emotional distance? And let him say, if he can come up with the answer, so you'll know what his definition is of being emotionally distant. But with respect to how can you cope with your feelings of loneliness, I would put it in the form of a request for him to help you feel less lonely. So this is you talking to your husband. If I were to video record you helping me feel less lonely when I download your actions as being emotionally distant. I'm not accusing you of being emotionally distant, but sometimes I download it that way and I feel lonely. And just in case you would want to help me with that, if I were to video record you helping me in those moments of loneliness, you would be saying or doing some of these things. Susan, a neurotypical wife married to an autistic husband, she is suffering from Cassandra syndrome. And she shared an email with me, and she says she feels invisible. She said, she's referring to her ASD husband. She said, he never asks how my day is. I tell him he interrupts with a fact about something unrelated to what I'm talking about. And when I say I'm sad, he offers a solution instead of comfort. I know he loves me, but I don't feel loved. And when I try to explain, he says, but I do all these things for you. So Susan wasn't ungrateful. You know, she appreciated his efforts, but she longed for something different. Eye contact, touch, shared laughter, emotional safety, and without it, she felt like she was fading. Does this sound familiar? Do you ever feel like your emotions just don't register? You know, like you could be crying in plain sight and it wouldn't change a thing. Okay, well, you're not invisible, you're just unheard in a language mismatch. So let's try to work on that. Let's talk about the loop of invisibility first. You hint, he misses it, you get louder, he shuts down, and then you apologize for being too emotional, and the loop repeats. And then before long, you start editing yourself. You stop sharing the small things, and that's where connection used to live. You know, invisibility doesn't happen overnight. It happens by 1,000 tiny silences. Now let's talk about intent versus impact. Your ASD spouse does not intend to hurt you, but the impact, it's real. Autistic partners can miss tone and subtext, but that doesn't mean your longing is invalid. You can love someone deeply and still feel profoundly lonely. And saying that out loud doesn't make you cruel, it just makes you honest. Now, let's talk about reclaiming visibility. When you're talking to him, you can say it simply. When I share something important, I need a response even if it's short. Or you can say, if you can't talk now, please tell me when we can talk. Then schedule weekly check-ins. Keep them short, one topic, no distraction. I said, weekly check-ins, short, one topic, no digital devices or distractions. And if this talk starts going south again, you can say, okay, I'm pausing right now, I'll revisit tomorrow. Now that isn't withdrawal or a shutdown, that's wisdom. And every time you do this, you come back into focus, not as a caretaker, but as a full person. So I would like for you to comment below and let me know what you're going to do this week in the way of using your scripts. We talked about 3 of them in this video. You're not asking for too much. You're just asking for enough. Use your scripts. By the way, subscribe now because I'll be doing videos several times a week and I don't want you to miss anything. The emotional hunger of people that suffer from Cassandra syndrome is often hidden behind a polished exterior. You know, you may smile at family dinners, laugh at parties, and praise your spouse's strengths to others. But when the guests leave and the house grows quiet, you kind of return to a world of silence and unmet needs. And this double life, if we'll call it that, creates deep isolation because others only see a stable, successful, ASD spouse, and they don't often believe your private pain, and they may even view you as being overly emotional and dramatic and so on. And this disbelief deepens the wound and reinforces silence. So those living with an autistic spouse, we're not making him out to be a bad guy. I'm sure he's a great guy. I like him just fine, probably very smart. But if you are suffering from Cassandra syndrome, then you're feeling more isolated in marriage than you ever felt when you were alone. And you kind of wonder why love doesn't really feel like love. And you may believe that you're being selfish and wanting too much. You may mourn the loss of the marriage you had imagined. And you've kind of learned to meet all your emotional needs at the cost of intimacy. Now, these consequences are not a reflection of weakness or selfishness. They're the consequences of emotional deprivation. So if this resonates with you, please like and subscribe. I'll have more videos coming up. There's going to be a link to a video right there that will take you to some things that you can do given the cards that you've been dealt. All right, thanks. Cassandra syndrome is rarely obvious to outsiders. Unlike infidelity, addiction, or abuse, it doesn't make for dramatic stories. Instead, it lives in subtler places, like, the dinner table where conversations feel mechanical, the living room where silence stretches for hours, the bedroom where intimacy has withered, the therapy session where the spouse says, he's not a bad man, he just doesn't see me. It's these small daily absences that Cassandra syndrome takes root. So if this resonates with you, like, subscribe. Also, if you'll do a search on Amazon, you'll find my book for Cassandra syndrome sufferers. Just do a search for Mark Hutten Amazon books. The book is called, I'm looking at it right now, Living in the Shadow, Healing from Cassandra Syndrome in an Autistic Marriage. Stay in touch, comment below. If he has ASD level 1, he has mind blindness issues, emotions blindness issues, executive function deficits, all of which create huge anxiety. What I run into most often, if he were to be honest with himself, he often feels confused and insecure in the relationship. This causes a lot of anxiety. He's always in the process of alleviating anxiety, either with a shutdown or a meltdown or just staying busy outside of the relationship. But unfortunately, and now this is the message to the guys in here, your anxiety reduction strategies have, in most cases, made your anxiety worse because you just kick the can down the road.
From the NTY's perspective, life often feels like a massive project she has to manage. She might see a dozen things that need doing at any given moment: bills, appointments, social plans, household chores, and so on. She often becomes the default manager of all this emotional labor and the executive functioning of the home. Not because she's a control freak, but because she's terrified that if she doesn't do it, everything will fall apart. And this isn't a judgment on her ASD husband. It's a practical response to what feels to her like a very real possibility. When she says, "Don't forget the trash goes out tonight," it's not coming from a place of wanting to treat him like a child. It's coming from the anxiety of all the times the trash was in fact forgotten. The mental energy it takes to hold all these details in her head is huge. Her reminders are her attempt to offload some of the mental weight to create a team system.
Message to all the people out there suffering from Cassandra Syndrome. This may be one of the hardest questions you'll ever ask yourself. Is it autism or is it abuse? I'm specifically addressing the neurotypical wives that are in a relationship with an ASD husband and you haven't had your emotional needs met for years and years. So let's take a deep breath together and untangle what's really happening beneath the confusion. Autism changes capacity. It changes how a brain processes emotion, how it reads cues, how it tolerates stress. So it can mean that your ASD husband truly struggles to notice tone or facial expressions or the emotional meaning behind your words. Now, that's not cruelty. That's wiring, okay? But abuse, if we're really talking about abuse, that's a choice, not a wiring issue. It's the deliberate use of power, control, or humiliation to dominate another person. So, when you're trying to sort out which one you're living with, don't just ask why something happened. Ask what happens next. If someone can't do something, you'll see confusion and often remorse. If they won't, you'll see defensiveness, blame, and entitlement. So let's make that real. If your ASD husband forgets to respond to your text because he happened to be hyper-focused, that's a capacity issue. If he read it, ignored it, and then later he said, "You're so needy," that's a choice. So capacity deserves patience. Choice demands boundaries.
Well, if he has ASD, he's going to have some emotions blindness. He's going to be out of touch with his feelings and other people's feelings. And also his display of emotions will be muted, with the exception of anger. If he's sad, you may not know the difference between when he's sad, happy, surprised. But if you notice that he's angry, you'll know what's going on is anxiety. So there's anxiety that displays as anger, and pretty much all other emotions are muted, and it's just your best guess as to what he might be feeling. So to help you better understand his emotions, just know that he's not going to display emotions to the degree that you're going to be able to read. And you said, how can I better understand what he might be feeling in different situations? Again, I would go for the thoughts instead of the feelings. If you get the sense that he's feeling something that's off and is disconcerting to you, instead of asking him how he feels, I would just say, I'm not accusing you of being angry or anxious. It's my download. It appears to me that
You might be agitated, I don't know. Is there something on your mind? So you're coming at it from a thought angle, because he'll know probably what he's thinking in the moment, not so much what he's feeling. A quick message to neurotypical Ys out there who may be suffering from Cassandra syndrome. This video right here could change everything for you. Listen, when your autistic husband shuts down, it feels like rejection, and why wouldn't it? I don't blame you. But emotionally, something very different is happening. Most autistic men retreat not because they don't care, but because their nervous system is overwhelmed. Too many words, too much emotion, too much pressure to fix it, and their brain hits a survival mode called shutdown. You've lived it. But listen, here's the important stuff. It's not about you. It's his way of trying to stay regulated. And here's the part that nobody tells you, and you may not believe it, and I wouldn't blame you if you didn't. A shutdown is actually an attempt to protect the relationship. I know, sounds like that's not the case, I get it. But think about it, meditate on it, pray about it, and you'll get it. I don't want to repeat it. A shutdown is actually an attempt to protect the relationship, not to escape it. He wants connection. He just doesn't know how to stay in the moment without flooding. He wants to make you happy. He just doesn't know how to do it. He's frustrated too. So the next time he goes quiet, remember, it's not rejection, it's overload. And with the right skills, both of you can learn calmer ways to get back to one another. Okay? I know, it's hard to believe. Think about it. Follow for more Cassandra syndrome support. Okay, this channel is for the most part, neurotypical wives who have Cassandra syndrome. But in this video, I would like for you to share this with your autistic husband. So let's assume that you were successful in doing that. So now I'm talking to your ASD husband. Guys, here's what happened to your NT wife. Initially, there was some emotional reciprocity. It was acceptable, right? There was give and take in conversation, affection. Maybe she was your special interest. There was a lot of quality time and so on. But that emotional reciprocity waned over time. You kind of drifted away. There was no malicious intent on your part. You didn't do it purposefully. You just kind of the romantic phase was over and you got absorbed in your special interest and you kind of left her behind. You didn't know that you did that, although I'm sure she mentioned it to some degree or another. The next thing is the emotional reciprocity becomes virtually non-existent because you're perfectly content to be absorbed in your special interest, which is usually work, and you get a lot of your needs met that way. She's over there withering on the vine. The next step then is she pleads, begs, negotiates, nags, which would be a term you might use, for some emotional reciprocity. She is not getting her emotional needs met. Her requests or even demands to get those needs met go unanswered. And so then eventually she gets to the point where she feels deprived, depreciated. She feels that work's more important to him than me. And she may label you as selfish, insensitive, uncaring, narcissistic, and so on. But anyway, the point to this video is there's this drifting away process that you do as the ASD husband. Initially, there's a lot of connection. Over time, you unconsciously drift away. She pleads for you to come back, pleads, and pleads. You don't really see the importance of that. And so you continue to kind of drift away. And if she has pleaded so strongly that now it downloads to you as criticism and an attack, you purposefully try to stay away from her because she may have become your number one source of anxiety. Not every Cassandra partner experiences the syndrome in the same way. Some feel occasional pangs of loneliness. Others describe years of despair. Some cope by throwing themselves into work, hobbies, or parenting, and others sink into a depression. But all share a common thread, which is a sense of being unseen and unheard by the person they love most. Now, some spouses resist the label Cassandra syndrome because they worry that it pathologizes their pain. But having a name is not about blame, it's about validation. Without a name, your suffering feels invisible. with a name, you can reframe your struggles as real and legitimate. You can recognize that you're not alone, and you can begin to seek support from those who understand. A name turns isolation into solidarity. It transforms silence into speech. This is my book, available on Amazon. Please subscribe and like.
She feels kind of ripped off. It's like, I got tricked. I got fooled. I've been cheated out of my dream. This is not what I signed up for. This is not at all what I was expecting as a 16-year-old girl that was already looking forward to someday, having a family and whatnot. You weren't having that thought at 16 years old. You didn't have the thought one time, gosh, I cannot wait to get married and have kids. I'm really looking forward to that day. You never had that thought at all. You're more concerned maybe with playing your games or some kind of special interest thing. So in summary, she feels like her dreams have been stolen.
Your ASD husband has probably said to you, well, you're so emotional. And you may have said to him, well, you're so robotic. I say, congratulations, you're both very observant.
So autism is no respecter of persons any more than Hurricane Ian was a respecter of people in Fort Myers Beach, Florida, for example. It doesn't respect the person who has autism. It doesn't respect the person who's married to the person who has autism. It's been around for a long time, allegedly a few hundred years, and a lot of people suspect that it's been around since day one. So it's not going anywhere, not anytime soon. It is what it is. Don't take it personally any more than you would take Hurricane Ian personally. Well, I can't believe that hurricane just happened to tear down my house. I'm taking that as a personal affront. Hurricane wasn't concerned about you, wasn't thinking about you. It had nothing to do with you. Now, having said that, you can still feel the pain associated with being involved in the event, on the receiving end of maybe a meltdown from your autistic husband, on the receiving end of storms that tear up your house. So I'm not saying you're not affected by it, but I am saying that it is something that exists in the universe, and you can either fight it or accept it. But if you fight it, it always wins.
Quick message to neurotypical wives out there married to an autistic husband. Autistic partners often carry qualities that are not only admirable but deeply stabilizing in marriage. For example, many are steadfastly committed. They often stick to routines and show consistency. They're not very manipulative in most cases, and deceit usually feels unnatural to them. Their perspectives can be refreshingly unconventional, to say the least. They have some creative insights, and they may excel at things like problem solving, financial management, technical skills, facts, figures, numbers, graphs, computer programming, engineering, and so on. And for some Cassandra neurotypical wives, these strengths are part of what keeps them in the marriage. But many wives that I talk to, they say, yeah, he's not abusive, he's faithful, he provides, he's a good man, so why am I so miserable? And they maybe start to feel guilty about that. And this is one of the hardest truths about Cassandra syndrome. You can be married to a fundamentally good person and still feel profoundly unseen. If this resonates, like, subscribe, and I have a Cassandra Syndrome recovery group, and also have many Cassandra Syndrome recovery books on Amazon. I'll put the links in the description and pinned in the comments section. Thank you. Okay, hey, let's talk briefly about understanding shutdowns and overwhelm. I want you to be thinking in terms of noticing early warning signs. So your autistic husband might feel tense, he might go blank, he might lose words, he might stare at the floor, he might leave. And you, as the neurotypical partner, might feel anxious, talk faster, push harder, pursue him when he tries to leave. So when these signs appear, it's time to slow down, not dig in. So shutdown and meltdown are two sides of the same coin. Both are forms of nervous system overwhelm. They're not choices, ladies. They're automatic responses. Recognizing the pattern early allows both of you to intervene with compassion instead of criticism. So each of you as the neurotypical wife and your ASD husband, I'd like for you to list your top 3 warning signs that you're approaching overload and share them with one another. Example, when I stop making eye contact, that means I'm at my limit. And then agree on a cue to signal that it's time to pause. When silence becomes your home language, love starts to feel like isolation. So let's talk about how to live through shutdowns without losing yourself. What's the true meaning to his silence, your ASD husband? A shutdown isn't rejection, it's overload. The autistic brain can only handle so much social noise before it goes offline. But your body reads silence as abandonment. So the moment you most need reassurance, you get distance. That mismatch cuts deep. How do you navigate these shutdowns? Well, when it happens, separate the person from the moment. In other words, you can say calmly, I'm going to read in the bedroom for a bit. Join me if you can. That's self-protection, not punishment. And later, when calm returns, use a debrief like, when you went quiet, I felt anxious. Next time, could we check in after 30 minutes? So that's one gentle structure that can save the relationship from chronic misfires. How do you care for your nervous system? Ground yourself, feel your feet, name 5 things you see, text a safe friend, remind yourself this is temporary, I'm safe, I still matter. So when you stay regulated, you break the generational pattern of emotional panic that silence tries to trigger. So I'd like for you to tell me in the comments one phrase you'll use next time instead of spiraling. Also, be sure to visit CassandraSyndromeRecovery.com. I have a group that meets 4 weeks, 1 hour each week. It's a recovery group, and you'll get to meet some recovery sisters. In other words, other ladies going through the same thing that you're going through. So, you're learning to protect your peace, and that's power.
He won't get motivated until he's almost convinced that he's going to lose you. Because remember, I said a little bit ago, he's going to have a hard time living independently. To just be a bachelor and wing it on his own, at a few significant levels, he wouldn't make it. He might make it financially, and he might make it to the point where he can function fairly normally, but from an emotional standpoint, most guys, when they on the spectrum, when they do get divorced, and then they are on their own, they really have a hard time dealing with life, and their depression and anxiety skyrocket.
What I run into all the time when I'm working with the neurodiverse couples online, when she has Cassandra syndrome, the NT wife that is, she feels like he doesn't care and that everything else is more important than she is. Now, on his end, the ASD husband, he feels like he can't do anything right. Doesn't matter what he says or does, it's never good enough, can never meet your expectations. At some level, he feels like a failure, and so he distances himself for safety reasons. It's like, I can't help her the way I'm supposed to help her, and I feel like a failure, and so the best I can do is just kind of keep my distance in order to avoid conflict. Of course, now when he does that, she's feeling even more rejected and emotionally abandoned, which makes her even more upset and lonely, and she may complain as a result, and why wouldn't she? So now he in turn feels even more like a failure and a disappointment, so he distances himself even more, which makes her feel even more rejected and abandoned, and we get into this cycle. You see what I'm talking about, right? So if that sounds like you, and if we would have the chance to do an online video call using Zoom, we could figure out what's going on in your specific situation, so we can reestablish communication and connection and understanding. It's all one big misunderstanding. Email me, we'll set something up. Also, I post every day, so please subscribe, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Quick message to the NT wives out there. You need to begin engaging in some forms of escapism. Your autistic husband does that. He does maybe some version of a shutdown. And so he's over there decompressing, playing video games or on the computer, or doing something where he is basically decompressing while you're over there compressing. So he has his forms of escape. You need to find your forms of escape and use them frequently. I know this may go against the grain of your wanting to charge in there and tackle relationship problems, especially when you're upset. That's not escape, that's imprisonment. I'm not saying never try to tackle problems, but you need to find some ways to decompress too. What are some forms of escapism? Sleep, vacation, leaving the house for a while, going to the gym, working out, hot shower with some wine, meditation. There's all kinds of ways to escape. You got to start hunting those ways down and using them, because you're the one that's getting mentally sick over this neurodiverse marriage problems, not him. He's escaping, he's unwinding, he's relaxing, he's engaging his parasympathetic nervous system, he's reducing his cortisol and adrenaline levels. Why aren't you? Escapism, ladies. Come up with some ideas, implement prompt. A quick message to those suffering from Cassandra syndrome. Be careful when you replay the past, please. The hurtful things that your ASD spouse said or did. When you go back and remember, you not only remember the content, that's called content memory, that's what was said and done, but every time you go back and replay the memory, you also replay the emotional memory. In other words, how you felt at the time that that thing was said or done. So I know you have a lot of history of pain. And I'm not saying forget the past. You want to remember what happened so you don't put yourself in harm's way like that again. But we don't want to ruminate on it. We don't want to replay the whole movie and sit down with a bucket of popcorn and just rehash the whole thing over again, because every time you go back, there's content memory and emotional memory. And every time you replay that emotional memory, it hurts all over again. It hurts all over again. You re-injure your heart. You can't afford to do that anymore. So forgiveness is just, I'm not going to go back and replay the old hurtful memories anymore. They're going to still pop in my head. And when they do, yeah, I can't believe he said this last year. I can't believe he didn't follow through with that 5 years ago. I'm going to catch it and quickly move on to the present moment, distract myself with something positive so I don't ruminate and rehash over the whole thing again, because I re-injure myself. Don't forget, when you go back and reflect on the past, there'll be content memory and emotional memory. And when you replay the event, you replay the hurt again. Whoever he is, if he doesn't understand your motives, your behavior, why you're saying what you're saying, why you're feeling the way you feel, he will fill in the blank with something that is usually negative. In fact, I will say always negative. If I don't understand this thing, I'm going to fill in the blank with something. I'm going to give it my best guess, and it's going to be a negative spin for sure. It's going to be a negative reframe of your behavior, and so now I think that you're against me. I think you're out to get me. I think you're being parental. I think you're chastising me. I think that you think that I'm defective and flawed, and you're trying to correct me and fix me. Quick message to all the neurotypical wives out there in a relationship with an autistic husband and suffering from Cassandra syndrome. I just want to briefly talk about 3 myths of autism. The first one is autism is a childhood condition, and you may have heard it described as a development disorder in children. But autistic kids grow up into autistic adults, and your ASD husband's brain didn't outgrow autism. It simply adapted to it over time. So, as I'm sure you know by now, it's not just a childhood condition. Another myth is autism means no empathy. I know it looks like that sometimes. I think that's a very damaging myth, is that autistic people lack empathy. In reality, they feel emotions deeply and too deeply, and so they try to avoid it, and they also struggle to express their emotions in ways that you, the neurotypical, would expect. Sometimes their empathy is also delayed because they are a slow processor when there's emotions involved, and that can look like he doesn't care. I understand. And other times the emotions are so intense that they shut down as self-protection, and I'm sure you've experienced your ASD husband shutting down, and you may view that as yet again that he doesn't care and wants to avoid me. The third method I want to talk about in this video is autism looks the same in everyone. No. Every autistic person is different. Some may talk a lot, some may talk very little, some may struggle with work, others are addicted to work, some struggle financially, others excel professionally and are very lucrative, but they all find home life very exhausting because there's a lot of social and emotional nuances at home. But anyway, long way around the bush to get to the point, and that is autism is not a one-size-fits-all. So there you go. Hope that helps you understand autism. Quick message to neurotypical spouses out there who may be suffering from Cassandra syndrome. You know, everybody says the holidays are joyful, but for some neurotypical wives, they're the loneliest time of the year. When you're living with Cassandra syndrome, holidays amplify what's already there, which is feeling unseen, feeling unheard, feeling emotionally alone, even in a crowded room. You know, you as the neurotypical wife, you're expected to smile, to host, to connect, and be grateful while your emotional needs stay unmet. And traditions highlight the gap between what you hoped for and what actually is. Now, if this is you, it's not a weakness, it's chronic emotional disconnection, and the holidays turn up the volume. You're not crazy, you're not alone, and support does exist. So follow this channel for clarity, validation, and real tools for healing. I have a Cassandra syndrome recovery group. I have Amazon books on Cassandra syndrome, recovery from that. So I'm interested in the comment section below. What is things that help you get through the holidays? And in the meantime, God bless, and I hope you do have a happy holiday. Thank you. I have a book available on Amazon for those of you who want to recover from Cassandra syndrome. The link will be in the description, as well as pinned in the comments section. If you are a neurotypical wife in a marriage with an ASD level 1 husband, and you feel like you're suffering from Cassandra syndrome, then there's going to be a link below this video in the description area and also pinned in the comment section that will take you to my Cassandra syndrome recovery group. We meet 1 hour a week for 4 weeks. I hope to see you in that group.